Good morning, Internet, and welcome back to Matic Film Society. Today is going to be a quick overview of how to use the Canon AE-1 program. There's a couple different versions of this, but they are all virtually the exact same. There's not much of a difference between the AE-1 and the AE-1 program. Looking down at the top of the camera, this is our first control. This is your shutter speed. This is going to adjust how fast or how slow your shutter is open, and that will change how much light you get put onto your film. The next thing to look at on the camera is this ring here on the lens. This is going to be your aperture. If you have an aperture of 2.8, that's going to be really open and let in a lot of light. And if you have it stopped down to an aperture of 16, that's going to let in a lot less light. So you have your shutter speed here, you have your aperture here, and there's two different things that you can do on both of these, and this is only for the AE-1 program. And with these, you can switch your shutter speed over to program, and then you can rotate your aperture, press this little button, and rotate it over to the green A. And what that's going to do is that's going to put this camera into full automatic mode. And so now it will decide all of its settings that it needs in order to shoot the film. The only other setting that needs to be set in order to shoot in this mode is your ISO, and that is located here. What you're gonna do to change your ISO, once you've put in your film, you find out what ISO rating it has, and then you're gonna press this little silver button here, press that, and then there's a little dial right here that you rotate, and you can see that changes your numbers that you see through that window. What you set this to, so if you have a 400 speed film, you set it to 400 speed. If you have an 800 speed film, you set it to 800 speed. Pretty simple. To take an image with the Canon AE-1, what you're gonna do is you're going to advance your film, and then you're gonna press your shutter. That's all you have to do to get it to go. And then between every frame, advance, press your shutter. And what you're gonna see right here in this window is this is going to be your film advance numbers. And so every time you advance it, the film rotates by 1, and you can see that your numbers are rotating up until you get to 36, and that'll be your last exposure for your film. The next thing on top of this camera is right here. This is the film rewind knob and door opening button. What you do when you need to open this back door is you reach here and you pop this open, so it's just like that, and it'll come up like that, but it won't totally release your film door. Next thing you do is you give it a second little pop all the way up, and that opens up your film door. And now you have access to where you load your film. And so every time you open this, what it does is it resets your shutter counter to be back to S, and that's the start of the film. And so now what we're gonna show you is how to load this with some film. So this is how to add film to the Canon AE-1. Pop open your film, and what you're gonna do is you're gonna take its little knobble, and you're gonna put it knobble down, and then lock that in. So you'll see how it's not, if it goes in and it only goes in just a little bit and doesn't go all the way in, you need to just rotate that so that it grabs onto the actual spool, and now it can't come out. So all you have to do, drag this over to the end, and you wanna get it so these holes are grabbing on these little palms. There's some sprockets right here that when you advance the frame like that, they rotate, and that's what actually draws the film through it. So you pull this over until they're grabbing on that. You have enough length, and you're gonna tuck your tail into here, and it'll grab just a little bit of pressure on it. And then with your tabs on the film, you rotate it until it rotates over. You make sure it's grabbing. Fire off that frame. Now close your film door, lock that in. We just put in a 200 speed film, so what we're gonna do is we're going to press our silver button here and rotate this until our dial says 200 and locks that in. Now we are completely ready to go out and shoot some film. So let me show you how to focus with this camera. We're gonna take a look in so you guys can see straight through the viewfinder, and I'm gonna show you how the exposure meter works as well as the focusing system. Okay, so we are looking through the viewfinder of the Canon AE-1 right now, And what you're gonna see is that there's a split patch right in the middle of the camera that when I rotate the lens, it brings it into focus and lines those two images up. So if I point this at one of the straight lines on this back wall, you can see that right there, they're all together and straight, and that means that this is perfectly in focus. But if I rotate my lens on the focusing rings, you can see how those lines break apart from themselves, and that means that they are going out of focus. And so that plane is not in focus anymore. And so what you need to do in order to focus with this camera is you rotate your image until you see those lines perfectly lined up, just like that. And then once they're lined up, that means that that point in your frame is going to be in focus. Now looking over here on the right side of the viewfinder, you're going to see some indications. And so that blinking P means that you have it in automatic mode right now. And so I'm going to change it outside of automatic mode. And now we are in manual mode. You will see different things on your viewfinder. So right there, it shows the number that it's showing you is what aperture you're going to need depending on what shutter speed you have selected. So if I have 1/30 selected for a shutter speed, that's telling me that I'm going to need an f2.8 in order to get a properly exposed image. So all I would have to do is rotate my lens to meet at f2.8, and then that means it will be properly exposed. If you're seeing a blinking icon like this, where you have that one down there blinking, that means that it's going to be way too slow of a shutter speed for your aperture in order to get a properly exposed image. So you're going to need to change your lens to a different aperture, or you're going to need to slow down your shutter speed in order to get that to be a solid icon showing that you have enough light coming into the camera to actually make this image happen. And so you'll want to get that to somewhere using your shutter speed in order to be in a good spot, and then make sure that you have everything in focus and you're ready to go. The battery for the Canon AE-1 is located right here in the battery door, and there's a little latch right here that you press, and that's going to let it open. But mine is really sticky and takes a lot of finagling to open. So you might have to grab a pen, tap that in, that unleashes your little latch door, and that opens up to right there. And these are very simple batteries. So this is the battery that the Canon AE-1 uses. This battery right here says that it is A544, and that's because it's an Energizer lithium battery. But the standard battery that goes in this camera is the 4LR44. It's a pretty standard 6-volt battery. You can get them everywhere. And all you have to do to get this thing going, inside you can see you have your positive and you have your negative. Take your positive side up, pop that in there, close your door, and that's going to get this camera up and running. In order to test your battery, you have this black button here, and you're gonna hear a little beeping sound when you press it to check your battery. So that's the noise you hear when you press it, and that tells you that you have a good battery. If you hear the noise and it's nice and fast, like that, that means the battery's good. But if you hear like a slower beeping, that's more like a dut, 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 what that means is that you're getting less voltage with your battery. And if you're getting less voltage, that means that it's not going to function properly when you're actually using it to calculate your exposure. So the lenses that the Canon AE-1 program takes are Canon FD mount lenses. These are pretty prevalent on eBay and you can find them pretty cheap. In order to remove the lens that you have on it currently, there's a silver button here on the bottom of the camera, and you're gonna press that and then rotate it until your two red dots, you have a red dot here and you have a red dot there on the lens. You're gonna rotate until those line up, and then you can pop that off. And putting the lens on is just as simple. You line up your red dots, get that nice and straight, and then just rotate until it clicks. Boom, lens on, lens off. Once you finish shooting a roll of film on the Canon AE-1, how you remove your film is you're gonna come here to the bottom of your camera, and there's a little black button with a white dot on it. You're gonna press that in, and what that's gonna do is it's going to release your film in order to be wound back into the canister. And then you're gonna flip this up, and there's a little arrow on that showing the direction that you need to spin it. and you're going to spin this, and it's going to rotate the film back into the canister, and you'll feel a little bit of tension as the film is rewinding back into the canister, and you're gonna wanna rotate it until you feel that film come completely out, and you'll feel it in this. There'll be less tension on it once that pops out, and then you'll give it a couple more spins in order to make sure that it's gotten back into the film roll. I haven't rolled this one all the way back, so I can show you. Pop this open again and open up your film door, and see now the film has been wound back mostly into the canister. But you'll want to rotate this all the way back so that your film's completely back into the canister.